Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it slips into your life as a single message. 7 words long. And tonight, it started like this. I'm at my sister's. Don't wait. No, love you. No, be home soon. Just that, sterile, flat, preloaded with guilt. Now, here's where most people panic. But I didn't. Because the moment that message came in, her sister was standing 5 feet away from me, laughing at one of my terrible pasta jokes, a wooden spoon in her hand. That's when it all clicked. The silence, the late nights, the perfume I never bought. So I texted back, I'm not alone either. She read it instantly. No reply. 20 minutes passed. I could hear the car tires before I saw the headlights. She stormed in like a courtroom prosecutor. Saw her sister slicing tomatoes. And me, calmly plating 2 dishes like it was just another Thursday. She didn't even take her coat off. So I smiled and asked her, so, how was your date? There was this moment, maybe 3 seconds, where no one moved. She stood in the doorway, not blinking. Her coat still buttoned up to the neck, purse dangling from her elbow. Her face didn't show guilt. It didn't show confusion either. It showed fury. Controlled, simmering, surgical fury. But it wasn't directed at her sister. It was aimed entirely at me. And that's when I knew, really knew, she hadn't just been out with friends. She wasn't mad because I caught her. She was mad because I flipped the script before she got to deliver hers. I watched her eyes flick between us, me and her sister Tilda, standing side by side at the stove. Pasta boiling. Garlic bread in the oven. 2 plates out, perfectly portioned. No wine, no candles. Just a normal weeknight dinner. But I could see her imagination running laps, filling in gaps with things that weren't there. And maybe that's what stung her, knowing I hadn't done anything wrong, but still managed to make her squirm. Why is she here? Rena asked, voice thin. Tilda didn't say anything. She just handed me the strainer like we were mid-cooking show. I answered, calmly, she dropped by, said she found some books in your parents' attic. That was true. Rena's jaw tightened. You didn't think to call me? I assumed you were busy. I looked down at her phone, still in her hand. You said not to wait. That's when the silence really hit. She stepped forward, slowly, then stopped short of the kitchen island. Her eyes darted to the plates, then to the couch, then back to her sister, who still hadn't said a word. I don't understand what this is, Rena said. That made me laugh. Not a big, dramatic laugh, just one of those short, sad ones you make when the mask finally falls off someone's face, and they pretend not to notice. You don't understand? I repeated. You lied about being at your sister's, while your sister was literally helping me sauté onions. She folded her arms. I didn't lie. I tilted my head. Then where were you? Another pause. Another dodge. I don't owe you an explanation for every moment of my day. There it was. The line. I'd heard versions of it before, not just from her, but from people who'd already made up their minds that they were entitled to a version of reality where consequences only applied to others. Tilda finally spoke up. Quiet, but clear. Rena, you told me not to come over tonight. You said you needed space. That he was too much. Rena's head snapped toward her. What the hell are you doing? Tilda stepped back. Just telling the truth. And suddenly, it wasn't about dinner anymore. It was about months of gaslighting. About every time I asked where she'd been, and she rolled her eyes. Every late night I sat by myself, wondering if I was just paranoid. Every morning she left lipstick on her coffee cup, but none on me. She didn't break down. She didn't apologize. She just stood there, cold, coiled, calculating. And that's when I said it again, slowly this time. So, how was your date? She blinked, but she didn't answer. She turned, walked to the door, and said over her shoulder, You'll regret this. Then she was gone. But the real story, the stuff I didn't know yet, was just getting started. The door didn't slam when she left. That part still bothers me. It closed softly, like she was leaving a therapy session, not a confrontation with her husband and sister. Tilda stayed behind. We didn't speak for a few minutes. She just sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers wrapped around a glass of water she didn't drink. I pretended to check the oven, but really, I was stalling, trying to stop my brain from spinning in every direction at once. She's not coming back tonight, I said finally. Tilda nodded, not looking up. She's been distant with everyone. I figured it was work stress, but this? I wanted to ask her what she meant, what else she knew. But something in me held back. It felt like I was standing in the middle of a crime scene, and asking too many questions would make me look guilty too. I told Tilda she could stay if she wanted, but she said she had an early shift and left soon after. And just like that, the house felt 2 sizes too big. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit down. I walked circles around the kitchen island like I was trying to wear a path through the floor. I kept checking my phone for a message that never came. At 3:17 a.m., I finally opened our joint bank account. Then I opened her private one. She didn't know I still had access. The transaction history told me exactly what I wasn't ready to admit. Dinners for 2 at places we'd never been. Hotel charges in the middle of the week. One boutique receipt with a name I didn't recognize. Juniper's. Not a store. A florist. On Valentine's Day, while I was home eating frozen pizza and watching reruns, I took screenshots of everything. Not for revenge. Just because if I didn't save it, I'd convince myself I imagined it all. The next morning, I went to work as usual. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't call her. I didn't even feel angry. Not yet. Just a heavy, mechanical numbness that followed me like a second shadow. When I got home at 5:42 p.m., my key didn't work. She'd changed the lock. It took me a second to understand what was happening. I pulled the key out. Tried again. Nothing. I tried slower, like that would make a difference. Still nothing. My key, the same one I'd used for 7 years, didn't fit anymore. I stood there for a full minute, just staring at the door. She had changed the lock less than 24 hours after storming out. No warning. No text. No call. No, let's talk. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't afraid of me. She wasn't hurt. She was getting ahead of something. I rang the bell, once. No answer. I knocked. Not loudly, just enough to be heard. Nothing. The house looked completely dark. But her car was in the driveway. Trash bins had been pulled in from the street. Porch light was still on. She was home. So I texted. I'm outside. Can we talk? No reply. Then I wrote again, this time more direct. Did you change the locks? Read. No reply. The silence made something very sharp start to grow in my chest. Not anger. Not yet, but a kind of cold realization. She wasn't panicking. She was planning. I drove to a friend's house. Bram, the only person I trusted enough to talk to. He gave me his couch for the night and a beer I didn't touch. I told him bits and pieces, just enough for him to look at me with that face people make when they're trying not to say, I told you so. At 11:03 p.m., Rena finally messaged back. Not, are you okay? Not, let's talk. Just, you can stay at your brother's until I figure things out. Until she figures things out? I didn't even get a say. I called her. She declined it. Called again. Voicemail. I sat there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together how the hell I'd gone from cooking dinner with her sister to being treated like a squatter in my own house in less than 48 hours. Then I remembered something. We had a home security app. I'd installed it myself. It had indoor motion detection. I hadn't opened it in months. I logged in, and there it was. 7:18 p.m., guest mode activated. 7:22 p.m., front door unlocked remotely. 7:27 p.m., living room motion detected. She had let someone else in, while I was locked out, and she didn't even bother to disable the logs. I stared at the screen, hand trembling over the phone, thinking the one thought I never wanted to admit was possible. She brought him home. To our bed. To our couch. To my life. And that's when the numbness cracked. I didn't sleep that night either. But I wasn't walking in circles anymore. I was making a plan. I stared at the phone screen for nearly an hour, just replaying the notification. Guest mode activated. 5 words, and they collapsed everything I had been holding together with quiet denial. Someone had been invited into my house, my home, while I was out sleeping on a borrowed couch like some unwanted tenant in my own life. I didn't rage. I didn't throw my phone or scream into a pillow. That would have made it too easy for her. She wanted me broken, frantic, off balance. Instead, I did what I've always done when I'm spiraling. I made coffee and started writing everything down. I listed out every transaction I'd found in her account. I recorded the dates, the times, the names of places. I matched them to the days she said she was at work late or visiting her sister. I kept it all in a clean little folder, labeled Timeline. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I needed truth, and I needed it organized. The next morning, I went back to the house. Not to get in, I knew better, but to watch. I parked 2 houses down, stayed in the car with the seat reclined. I knew it was pathetic. I also knew I didn't care anymore. At 8:42 a.m., the garage door opened. A man I didn't recognize walked out. Khaki jacket, sunglasses, holding a travel mug that looked suspiciously like the one Rena always used. He didn't rush, didn't sneak, just walked confidently to his car and pulled away like he belonged there. I snapped a photo. My heart didn't sink, it solidified. I waited another 10 minutes, then texted her again. We need to talk. I know about guest mode. No response. But at 2:17 p.m., I got an email. Not a message. An email, cold, formal, sterile. Subject line, space. The body read, Merrill, I think it's best we take time apart. I don't feel safe with how you've been showing up unannounced. Please respect my privacy and my need for distance. I'll be in touch when I've had time to think. Rena. No love. No, I'm sorry. Just that. She had flipped the narrative. She wanted to make it look like I was the unstable one. That I was hovering, obsessed, dangerous. She was prepping a story, one she could use if things ever got messy. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened the shared cloud storage we'd both forgotten about. The one where our security cam footage auto-synced. I downloaded everything from the last 48 hours. Then I called a lawyer. Because now it wasn't about heartbreak. It was about strategy. The lawyer didn't flinch when I explained everything. In fact, she barely blinked. She just nodded slowly and said, You did the right thing saving all that. Her name was Corliss, mid-40s, sharp eyes, didn't fill silences unless there was a legal reason to do so. I chose her because she didn't care about theatrics. She cared about outcomes. I handed her the drive with all the security footage. She plugged it in without a word and scrolled through the folder titled Timeline, Guest Mode. When she saw the man walking out of my garage, holding my wife's travel mug, she finally spoke. That's not your friend, she said. No, I answered. And he's definitely not her brother. Corliss turned her screen toward me. That timestamp matters. She told you she was alone that night? She told me not to wait for her. Claimed she was at her sister's. She nodded again. Then we start there. That's premeditated misrepresentation. Let's check your mortgage and house title next. 2 hours later, I walked out of her office with something more valuable than rage. I walked out with a strategy. But as the legal pieces were falling into place, the emotional weight hit harder than ever. Because here's what no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't always hurt like fire. Sometimes it hurts like fog. A cold, creeping numbness that makes every memory feel like someone else's life. Rena still hadn't contacted me directly. No call. No apology. No defense. Just silence. And that silence wasn't accidental. It was calculated. Because in her version of the story, she needed me to look unhinged. Obsessive. Jealous. She wanted a clean exit, and if she could paint me as unstable, that exit would be effortless. But what she didn't realize is that the cameras had captured more than just timestamps. They had audio. Faint, yes, but audible. I isolated one clip from the night she locked me out. It was barely 30 seconds, but it said everything. Him, you sure he's not coming back? Her, laughs, he's too soft. He won't fight me. That line, that smug confidence in her voice, that certainty that I would just roll over and let her rewrite the story. I played that clip 12 times in a row. Each time it felt more like a dare. So I responded, not with words, not with confrontation, but with documentation. I sent the clip to my lawyer. Then I filed a petition to freeze our joint assets and protect the house until property ownership was fully reviewed. Rena didn't respond, but I saw the change. Suddenly, I wasn't getting cryptic silence. I was getting polite, legal-sounding emails. Carefully worded. Deliberate. Like she was backpedaling without admitting anything. And then, one morning, I woke up to a text from her number. It just said, "Can we talk?" No period. No greeting. That's when I realized she finally understood. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about leverage. Her message came at 6:41 a.m. Can we talk? No punctuation. No context. Just that. I stared at it for a full minute, then locked my phone and slid it across the counter like it was contagious. I didn't answer right away. Not out of pettiness, out of calculation. She had ignored every message when I was asking for clarity. Now that I had the leverage, suddenly she wanted conversation. By noon, I had 3 more messages, each one more neutral than the last. I think we should clear the air. I don't want this to get messier than it needs to. Let's just talk face to face, please. I forwarded the messages to my lawyer and waited for her green light. Corliss was swift. Meet in public. Record everything. No sudden agreements. So I picked a coffee shop Rena hated, on purpose, and told her to meet me there the next day at 2 p.m. She arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a dress I bought her last Christmas. It still had the little thread loop on the shoulder she never bothered to snip off. She looked tired, but not remorseful. Her makeup was precise. Her posture, guarded but practiced. She didn't hug me, didn't smile, just sat down across from me and folded her hands like we were in a deposition. "I'm not here to fight," she started. "I just think this has all spiraled way too far." I didn't answer. I just sipped my coffee and waited. She exhaled sharply, like I was already exhausting her. "Look, I admit I should have been more honest. I was overwhelmed. I made bad choices. But you showing up uninvited, freezing the accounts, that's not fair, Merrill." I nearly laughed. Not fair. I wanted to lean across the table and ask if it was fair to lie to me about where she was while the guy she was sleeping with drank coffee from my mug. But I didn't. That's what she expected, a reaction. Instead, I slid a printed document across the table, the asset protection petition. Her name at the top, my lawyer's watermark in the corner. Time-stamped. "I'm not here to fight either," I said. "I'm here to protect what I built before you turned it into a prop for your little performance." She blinked, clearly caught off guard. Performance? I know about guest mode. I know about the security logs, the footage, the florist, the hotels, the man in my garage. I know it all, Rena. Her eyes darted around the cafe. She hadn't expected me to come armed with receipts. She leaned in, lowered her voice. "You went through my accounts?" "There are accounts. You just used them like I didn't exist." She sat back, lips tight. "So what? You want to ruin me now?" I smiled, not kindly. "No. I want to make sure you never get the chance to ruin me again." She stood up fast. Too fast. Knocked her chair slightly off balance. Her hands shook just a little. I could see it now, the fear creeping in around the edges of her control. "You've changed," she muttered. "No," I said. "I've just stopped protecting the version of you I wanted to believe in." She didn't reply. She walked out. But the next day, I received an email from her lawyer. She wanted to negotiate the terms of separation privately, which meant only one thing. She was scared of what else I might have. What she didn't know? There was something else. And I'd been saving it for exactly the right moment. There was one last thing I hadn't used yet. In the flurry of bank records, camera footage, and legal strategy, I had forgotten about the old laptop in the upstairs closet, the one she used during her final year of grad school. It hadn't been touched in over a year. She used to joke that it was cursed because the screen flickered when it got hot. But I remembered something else about that machine. It auto-synced to a backup cloud folder she never disabled. I powered it up. The fan screamed like a jet engine. It took 5 minutes to boot. But when I opened the documents folder and found the synced folder labeled Personal, my heart skipped. Inside were screenshots of text threads with a name I didn't recognize, Travis M. And the texts, they weren't new. They dated back 2 years. She hadn't just drifted away over the past few months. She had been slowly laying the groundwork for a second life. Love notes. Travel plans. One message said, "He's still in his own little bubble. He'll never leave me. I'm safe." That one hurt. But it also made things clear. I sent that final folder to Corliss, and within 48 hours, Rena's attorney called to say she was willing to settle everything privately, amicably, and immediately. She forfeited the house, the joint accounts, even agreed to waive spousal support. No court battle, no drama, just silence. Exactly the way she liked it. But this time, it was on my terms. And as for me, I won't say it didn't change me. It did. For a while, I didn't trust anyone, not even my own memory. I kept replaying everything, asking how I missed the signs. But over time, something unexpected happened. I started feeling free. I began waking up without tension in my chest. Started reconnecting with people I'd pulled away from during the quiet breakdown of my marriage. Even Tilda reached out eventually, not in a weird way, just to say she was sorry for keeping things hidden for so long. We had coffee. It wasn't awkward. It was normal, and normal felt like a miracle. So no, this story doesn't end with revenge. It ends with recovery. And that, honestly, is the best kind of ending there is. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a moment where everything suddenly clicked, when a lie unraveled, or a hidden truth finally came out? Tell us your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how your moment of clarity changed everything.